But my point is that it goes far beyond that. And it goes beyond that because Taiwan is important to the United States in many ways. Well, for example, most basically, the fact that Taiwan has developed in its economic miracle is based on free enterprise and opportunities that Americans believe in. And at the same time that Taiwan developed the economic miracle and spread the benefits of its growth from poverty into wealth in a fair way to people throughout society, it also developed into a true democracy. And those values are very important to the United States, not only because we share those values, but also because it's such a powerful example to the rest of the world. Taiwan and the U.S. also have shown the value of friendship in the way that they have worked together in projects that created opportunity, going all the way back to the 1950s, from the U.S. Foreign Aid Program, JCRR, which was the Joint Commission for Reconstruction and Redevelopment, that helped advise Taiwan on the land reform program, the way that Taiwan graduated from the U.S. Foreign Aid Program in 1965 is such a wonderful example of how foreign aid should work in helping a country to really reach the takeoff phase and then be able to say, as Taiwan did, thank you so much, we don't need it anymore, we can take it from here on our own. Very few recipients of foreign aid have ever been able to do that. Taiwan is the model. Likewise, when the U.S. and Taiwan have confronted issues where sometimes they might disagree or see issues differently, as can happen between the best of friends, they've been able to resolve those issues in a constructive way. And again, this has a long history to it, going back, for example, to the development of a nuclear weapons program by Taiwan in the 1960s, where ultimately through friendly discussions between the U.S. and Taiwan, both parties were able to agree that it was ultimately in Taiwan's best interest not to develop nuclear weapons. And you contrast that with the grief that's being caused to the United States and to many other countries around the world, where countries like Iran are pushing a nuclear program regardless of the consequences. So Taiwan, again, is a great model. And one more example that I'll give is in the area of intellectual property rights, where back in the 1970s, early 80s, there was a lot of infringement, so-called commercial counterfeiting, as it was termed in those days, going on in Taiwan. But the U.S. and Taiwan worked together to help Taiwan first establish a series of good intellectual property laws and then improve its enforcement of those laws, so that eventually by the 1990s and going into the 21st century, again, Taiwan became a model of how to peacefully come to grips with a problem and use it effectively, so that not only were the interests of Americans and other foreigners protected, but the incentives for Taiwan's own business people to be creative and innovative were put in place and protected by those new intellectual property laws and policies.
Okay, thank you. And in your opinion, what's the most important issue between U.S. and Taiwan at this moment? Could we say the relation with China is one of the most important issues?
Well, I think historically, keeping the peace has always been number one. And the key to that, in my opinion, at the present time and in the foreseeable future, is to keep Taiwan vital. And that means strengthening Taiwan's economy and its democracy. On the economic side, further liberalizing the economy so that Taiwan is not marginalized and pushed to the side, but continues to play a vital role in the world economy. And democratically, one of Taiwan's great strengths in its relationship with the United States and its reputation and support around the world is the fact that it's a true democracy and it's an effective, functioning democracy with real individual freedom. And that contrast with the system in China, which has been very successful economically, but certainly is no democracy and with a painful lack of individual freedom. That contrast is so valuable to Taiwan that it has to be maintained. And Taiwan cannot afford to let deadlock between the political parties prevent it from being an effective democracy. Now, we have problems like that in this country too, with the parties butting heads and not getting things done. But the United States is fortunate because it has a wide margin of error, if you will. But Taiwan doesn't have that wide margin. Taiwan has a narrow margin. And it's even more important to Taiwan that it be able to continually demonstrate that its form of government, its democracy, can be effective. Get things done for Taiwanese people.
Next questions. When we talk about TPP, can you tell us how important is TPP to Taiwan?
TPP is an important goal. It is one of the keys to avoiding marginalization. If Taiwan can become a member of the TPP, then that is a way of ensuring that it continues to be a vital link in the global supply chain, especially for the high technology industries. But in order to qualify for admission to the TPP, there are a number of hurdles that have to be cleared. And the one that is most certainly within Taiwan's own hands is further liberalizing Taiwan's economy. That means not allowing narrow parochial interests domestically in Taiwan to cast Taiwan in an unfavorable light, to make it appear protectionist and appear unprepared to take the liberalizing steps that are necessary to join the TPP. An example of that right now is with imports of pork from the United States. Pork imports represent a small fraction of 1% of Taiwan's GDP. It's a tiny factor in Taiwan's economy. And so for the progress of Taiwan's economy is something that's so vital to Taiwan's future, to be held hostage by small, narrow, selfish interests is most unwise. And so it's going to require leadership, and it's going to require a broader appreciation by business and by media in Taiwan of the big picture. One way to start that process, by the way, in the right direction, looking at it from the standpoint of Taiwan's relationship with the United States, is one of the keys to getting Taiwan into the TPP is to have strong support from other countries. And the leader of that effort should be the United States. We have, of course, the TIFA agreement and the TIFA negotiations between the US and Taiwan, Trade and Investment Framework Agreement negotiations. And it's within that context that issues like the pork imports come up. And so Taiwan wants to use the agreements and the instrumentalities and organizations that it has in place as a way, as building blocks toward eventual membership in the TPP. That also includes the ECFA agreement with China, the Economic Framework Cooperation Agreement with China, because Taiwan's ability to join any international organization is to some extent affected by China and the position that China takes on Taiwan's membership. So if Taiwan can build brick by brick toward TPP membership, recognizing that TIFA is one brick with the United States, ECFA with China is another brick, free trade agreements with countries like New Zealand and Singapore and others are other bricks. That's the way to get there.
My next question would be in what ways US can help Taiwan to become part of TPP? But I think you already answered that in some way.
Yes.
Okay. So my last question is, in your opinion, which direction will the Taiwan economic goes in the year 2014?
Which direction will Taiwan's economy go? I think forward, but slowly.
Because?
Well, the world is faced with slow growth right now, and it's very difficult, if not impossible, for Taiwan to grow at a faster pace than the rest of the world. The United States economy is growing, but slowly. The European economy is growing, but slowly. China has its own issues. Some of the newly industrialized countries actually are struggling a little bit right now. So those are constraints on Taiwan's growth. And I think Taiwan will do well to keep growing, but we should moderate our expectations by taking the reality of the worldwide economic slow growth into account.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.